We're going to take on chapter 21 and 22. We're going to do both of them.
Okay.
So we're going to do supernatural powers of the thus come one, which will be on page 166. But before we do that, I got a bunch of stuff to go through from the dictionary.
Okay.
So let me go first to emerging from the earth, or pardon me, not from emerging from the earth, supernatural powers. We're going to also be referencing superior practices of the four great bodhisattvas that appear in the Emerging from the Earth chapter, the bodhisattvas of the earth, led by superior practices. Okay, I'm going to start there since it's on the same page as supernatural powers. This would be on page 643 of the dictionary. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Superior practices, Jogyo Bosatsu in Japanese. The first of the four leaders of the bodhisattvas of the earth who appear from beneath the earth in the Emerging from the Earth chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Shakyamuni transfers the essence of the sutra to those bodhisattvas, headed by superior practices in the Supernatural Powers 21st chapter of the Lotus Sutra. In the supplement to the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, Tao Xin, a priest of the Tentai school in China in the 8th century, states that the four bodhisattvas represent the four virtues of the Buddha's life: true self, eternity, purity, and happiness. We remember that from when we went through the Emerging from the Earth chapter, when the Daishonin was talking about the four great bodhisattvas, that actually those are all characteristics of our lives as bodhisattvas of the earth, right? Sometimes somebody will be all four, sometimes, okay. The four virtues of the Buddha's life: true self, eternity, purity, and happiness. Among these, superior practices represents the virtue of true self. True self. In his writings, Nichiren associates himself with Bodhisattva superior practices, saying that he has fulfilled the mission entrusted to the Bodhisattva by Shakyamuni, and he refers to his propagation efforts as the work of Bodhisattva superior practices. Nichikan, the 26th chief priest of Taisekaji Temple, regarded Nichiren as the reincarnation of Bodhisattva superior practices in terms of his outward behavior, and the Buddha of the latter day of the law in terms of his inner enlightenment. All right? You understood that? Good? Okay. All right. Supernatural powers of the thus come one chapter. This is chapter 21, what I'll be doing right here. Okay? So abbreviated as the supernatural powers chapter, the 21st chapter of the Lotus Sutra, in which Shakyamuni transfers the essence of the sutra to the bodhisattvas of the earth, led by superior practices. At the beginning of the chapter, the bodhisattvas of the earth vow to propagate the sutra widely after Shakyamuni's death. Thus, then the Buddha, displaying his supernatural powers, states that although these supernatural powers are vast and great, they are not enough to describe the benefit of the Lotus Sutra. He then declares the superior practices in the other bodhisattvas of the earth. To put it briefly, all the doctrines possessed by the thus come one, all the freely exercised supernatural powers of the thus come one, the storehouse of the secret essentials of the thus come one, all these most profound matters of the thus come one, all these are proclaimed, revealed, and clearly expounded in this sutra, the Lotus Sutra. The lines are often referred to as the four-phrase essence of the Lotus Sutra. After this statement, he transfers the sutra to the bodhisattva superior practices and the other bodhisattvas of the earth. Based on this passage, Tentai formulated the five major principles of name, essence, quality, function, and teaching. In Tentai's interpretation, all the doctrines possessed by the thus come one indicates name, all the freely exercised supernatural powers of the thus come one indicates function, the storehouse of the secret essentials of the thus come one indicates essence, all the most profound matters of the thus come one indicates quality, and all these are proclaimed, revealed, and clearly expounded in this sutra indicates the teaching. In his 1273 treatise, The Object of Devotion for Observing the Mind, Nichiren states that Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the heart of the lifespan 16th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, is endowed with these five principles and is endowed with these 5 principles. Nichiren thus interprets the 5 major principles as the attributes of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. In the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, Tentai refers to the transfer in the Supernatural's Power chapter as the transfer of the essence of the Lotus Sutra. It is referred to as the specific transfer because it was made specifically to Bodhisattva superior practices and not to the other bodhisattvas of the earth. In contrast, the general transfer of the sutra was made to all the assembled bodhisattvas in the subsequent 22nd chapter, Entrustment. See also 5 major principles, 4-phrase essence of the Lotus Sutra. I won't give you the 4-phrase essence, but we will go into the 5 major principles. All right, so that's the overview of the supernatural powers that thus come one. Next is then the background or the synopsis of Entrustment chapter, the 22nd chapter. Of the Entrustment chapter, the 22nd chapter of the Lotus Sutra. In the previous 21st chapter, supernatural powers, Shakyamuni Buddha makes a specific transfer of the law of supreme perfect enlightenment, the essence of the Lotus Sutra, to the bodhisattvas of the earth. In this chapter, the Buddha makes a general transfer of the Lotus Sutra to all the bodhisattvas attending the assembly of the Lotus Sutra. Then all the Buddhas who have gathered from throughout the 10 directions return to their respective lands. The treasure tower returns to its original place, and the place of the thus come one, and the place of the thus come, and the place of the assembly shifts from the air back to Eagle Peak. In the Lotus Sutra of the Wonderful Law, Kumara Jiva's translation of the sutra, this is the 22nd of the 28 chapters, but in the various other versions, the Lotus Sutra of the Correct Law translated by Dharmamaksha, and the supplemented Lotus Sutra of the Wonderful Law by somebody else with the Sanskrit name, both containing only 27 chapters. The Entrustment chapter is the final chapter. All right, and then I'm going to go to the 5 major principles that we just referred to a minute ago. Also, the 5 viewpoints from which Tentai interpreted the Lotus Sutra: name, essence, quality, function, and teaching. In the profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra, Tentai explains that Myoho Renge-kyo, the title of Lotus Sutra, is not only the name, but also the essence of the sutra, and is endowed with a unique quality, function, and position among all teachings. Name signifies the meaning of the title of a sutra. The interpretation of the name section of profound meaning gives a detailed explanation of the title Myoho Renge-kyo and explains why it represents the essence of the Lotus Sutra. The essence signifies the ultimate principle of a sutra. The clarification of the essence section defines the substance of Myoho Renge-kyo to be the true aspect of all phenomena. The substance is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Quality indicates the principal doctrines of a sutra. The section Elucidation of Quality refers to the principal doctrine of the theoretical teaching, first half of the Lotus Sutra, to be the replacement of the provisional teachings with the true teaching, and the principal doctrine of the essential teaching, the latter half, to be the revelation of the Buddha's true identity, i.e. his original attainment of enlightenment, as well as the revelation of the true cause and true effect of his enlightenment. This section of profound meaning also states that the quality or main point of the sutra as a whole is the causality of the supreme vehicle of Buddhahood. Function indicates the power and benefit, and the benefit and power of a sutra. And the discussion of function section says that the theoretical teaching dispels belief in the 3 vehicles, teachings for voice hearers as being separated, teachings for voice hearers, cause awakened ones, and bodhisattvas, and arouses faith in the one vehicle of Buddhahood. And the essential teaching denies the Buddha's attainment of enlightenment in this life and arouses faith in his original attainment of enlightenment in the remote past. Moreover, the function of the Lotus Sutra as a whole is to lead all people to Buddhahood. Teaching refers to the position and influence of the sutra with respect to other sutras. The section Evaluation of the Teaching asserts that the Lotus Sutra encompasses all other teachings and that its influence permeates all phenomena. This section introduces the systems of classifying the sutras advocated by the 3 schools of southern China and the 7 schools of northern China, and refutes them with Tentai's own classification of the 5 periods and 8 teachings, a system that defines Myoho Geikyo as the supreme sutra. So again, this is all pertaining to the basis in which Shakyamuni qualified all of the sutras and put the Lotus and the Nirvana Sutra in a classification he called as perfect, or the top of the spear, the tip of the spear of the sutras of Tentai's entire life. A system that defines Myoho Geikyo as a supreme teaching. Tentai's 5 major principles are based on the passage of the Supernatural Powers 21st chapter, which we're going to be going over now, of the Lotus Sutra, that begins the transfer of the essence of the sutra to the bodhisattvas of the earth. It reads, to put it briefly, all the doctrines possessed by the Thus Come One name, all the freely exercised supernatural powers of the Thus Come One function, the storehouse of all the secret essentials of the Thus Come One essence, all the most profound matters of the Thus Come One quality, all these are proclaimed, revealed, and clearly expounded in this sutra teaching. Okay, so this went into a lot of stuff that the Daishonin is not really going to talk about. So that's how much he saw the provisional teaching of the Lotus Sutra as being important in the latter day of the law, because he doesn't even really qualify this. So now, let's see, what else have I got? I've got a few other dictionary items that I'm just going to quickly go through here. Okay, the Saha world, we all know what the Saha world is, right? What does it represent? This world which is full of suffering, okay? The Saha world is what we live in the absence of the 10 worlds being, the 10th world being awakened. We live in the 9 worlds, and the 9 worlds is this issue of having a cumulative effect of suffering, right? Endurance is a world of endurance, the land of endurance. It's where we go to transform from being common mortals into our true identity as Buddhas, all right? Sahe means earth. It derives from the root meaning to bear or to endure. So that's the whole point. It's the place where we suffer what there is to suffer and enjoy what there is to enjoy. For this reason, in the Chinese version of the Buddhist scriptures, Sahe is rendered as endurance. In this context, the Sahe world indicates a world in which people must endure suffering. It is also as opposed to a Buddha land where there would be no suffering. All right? So, okay. In this context, and then where is the Buddha land? It's actually in the world of suffering, right? Okay. So, in this context, the Sahe world indicates a world in which people must endure suffering. It also is defined as an impure land, a land defiled by earthly desires and illusions. To contrast with a pure land, the Sahe world describes the land where Shakyamuni Buddha makes his appearance and instructs living beings. In Buddhist scriptures, the Sahe world indicates either Jambudvipa or Jambudvipa, which is one of the 4 continents of the ancient Indian cosmology, or the entire world containing all 4 continents. It also indicates the major world system considered to be the realm of Shakyamuni's instruction. In some Buddhist scriptures, including the Lotus and Vimalakirti Sutras, it is held that the Sahe world, this world full of distress and suffering, is in fact itself a pure land, a land of eternally tranquil light. In the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni states, ever since then, I have been constantly in this Sahe world, preaching the law, teaching and converting others, indicating that the place where the Buddha dwells, the Buddha land, is in fact the Sahe world. Okay? So that's the significance of Sahe. And we go up. I need to do this because we're getting now, these last 2 chapters we're going to do today are the end of the ceremony in the air. Okay, so let's recap what the ceremony in the air is. When did it start? Does anybody know? We've been in it for a few chapters now. Treasure Tower. Starts in Treasure Tower, ends in Entrustment. Okay, So it says, the second of the ceremony in the air, the second of the three assemblies described in the Lotus Sutra. Okay, and what are the three assemblies? The group of individuals that were there to hear the teaching of this great sutra in the beginning, in those first several chapters that we read, all the way up to Teacher of the Law, I believe, and then 11 is the Treasure Tower, right? Or whatever, 11. And so the bottom line is the second of the three assemblies. So in this assembly, remember, he's called forth all kinds of Buddhas from outer space, other worlds, okay? So the assembly has grown quite a bit from the original earthbound people of the Dharma, of the Saha world, okay? And now it's going to end with these last two chapters. The second of the three assemblies described in the Lotus Sutra, in which the entire gathering is suspended in space above the ground. The other two assemblies take place on Eagle Peak. The ceremony in the air is depicted from the latter half of the Treasure Tower chapter through the Entrustment chapter of the Sutra. And this is why that I shown us going to make the qualification that the essence has already been transferred. It's been transferred from the beginning. Okay, so not at the end. It doesn't wait until the end, because the bodhisattvas of the earth are they all bear the 32 characteristics. So they're not quite they're a little bit further along than the people that would have been gotten to be suspended by virtue of being part of the first group. Okay, all right. So the ceremony in the air is depicted from the latter half of the Treasure Tower chapter through the Entrustment 22nd chapter of the sutra. In the Treasure Tower chapter, the treasure tower of the Buddha, many treasures, emerges from beneath the earth and is suspended in midair. Shakyamuni, after summoning the Buddhas who are his emanations from the 10 directions, stations himself in midair, opens the treasure tower. In other words, he floats up way high, higher than anybody on the ground could see, really. It's like a third of the size of the earth, so I don't think your eyeballs could see that high. Okay, right. So, so it's obviously a metaphor. All right, so treasure tower, many treasures, emerges from beneath the earth and is suspended in air. Shakyamuni, after summoning the Buddhas who are his emanations from the 10 directions, which is, again, north, south, east, west, all the spaces in between, and then up and down. Right. Okay, which is really is code also for the 10 worlds, as for us human beings. All right. Who are his emanations from the 10 directions, stations himself in midair, opens the treasure tower and enters it, taking his seat beside the Buddha many treasures. Then, using his transcendental powers, he lifts the entire assembly up into the air so they are at the same level. This begins the ceremony in the air. All right, so the ceremony is not just the ceremony in the air. The ceremony in the air is a specific spot from end of the second half of chapter 22 to chapter 20. From the second it's described from what's the treasure tower is the 11th, right? The 11th chapter through the 22nd chapter. That's all ceremony in the air. Okay, once he elevates the rest of the people up, okay, and then once everybody else goes home that's been brought in from a different world, including the bodhisattva of the earth. Thus, using his transcendental powers, he lifts the entire assembly into space so they are at the same level. This begins the ceremony in the air. The treasure tower chapter ends with Shakyamuni urging the audience to propagate the teaching, the sutra, in the evil age after his death. In the encouraging devotion, 13th chapter, the innumerable bodhisattvas attending vow to fulfill the Buddha's will, even if they must endure persecution by the so-called three powerful enemies. In the emerging from the earth, 15th chapter, the bodhisattvas of the other worlds make the same vow, but the Buddha refuses to entrust that mission to them. At that moment, the bodhisattvas of the earth make their appearance. The ground splits open and we all pop out. This marks the beginning of the essential teaching of the sutra. In the lifespan chapter, 16th chapter, Shakyamuni reveals his original enlightenment. the enlightenment that he attained numberless major world system dust particle kalpas in the past. In the Supernatural Powers 21st chapter, Shakyamuni transfers the essence of the sutra specifically to the bodhisattvas of the earth led by bodhisattva superior practices, entrusting them with its propagation in the latter day of the law. In the Entrustment chapter, he transfers the sutra to all the bodhisattvas present. Then Shakyamuni's emanations return to their lands, the treasure tower reverts to its former position, and the ceremony in the air comes to an end. The heart of this ceremony consists of the revelation of Shakyamuni's Buddha's original enlightenment and the transfer of the essence of the sutra to the bodhisattvas of the earth. So that would say chapter 16 and chapter 21. Okay? Nichiren states that the object of devotion he revealed as the Gohonzon is the perfect embodiment of the law, which is the essence of the Lotus Sutra. We just discussed those essence as one of the first ones, right? Of the 5. Which is the essence of the Lotus Sutra, and that it also represents, it is also a representation of the ceremony in the air. The real aspect of the Gohonzon reads, okay, so all about the Gohonzon Gosho reads, the Gohonzon was revealed in 8 chapters of Lotus Sutra from the emerging of the earth chapter through the entrustment chapter. It also reads, without exception, all these Buddhas, bodhisattvas, great sages, attending the ceremony in the air, dwell in this Gohonzon. Okay, so for instance, I've said to my kids, when I'm gone, you want to find me, you can always just go to the Gohonzon. I'll always be in the Gohonzon. This is where I get that from. Okay, because I am one of those Buddhas, frankly speaking. I always dwell in the Gohonzon. The Gohonzon is a manifestation of the 9th consciousness. Okay, it's where all Buddhas reside when they're in Ku, when they're in the realm of non-substantiality. So you're never alone when you chant to the Gohonzon. Okay, you're with all of your pals from Kuan Ganjo. That means your mom and dad are there too, frankly speaking. All right. It also reads, without exception, all these Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and great sages attending in the ceremony in the air dwell in this Gohonzon. The fact that the ceremony takes place in the air signifies that it transcends the framework of time and space. I need a tissue, please. Okay. Let me see, what else have I got to go here? I don't need to go into superior practices. I already read it. Forbearance, we read last week. You all remember what or last time we were together, you know what forbearance is, right? He's going to mention it again. This is the key. This is the only way to attain Buddhahood. What's forbearance?
You forge gold.
What?
Will you forge gold?
Well, you're forging gold in the process of practice or being forbearant. But forbearance is, again, like I said, when you're being given unhappy times and you don't complain. You understand and you persevere through suffer what there is to suffer. Enjoy what there is to enjoy.
Yes.
That's forbearance to the max.
Yes.
Okay? You don't require to be constantly uplifted with toys and baubles and carts and whatever. A Buddha is willing to go whatever. A Buddha understands their karma is their karma.
Right.
They've created it. They've purposely created the appropriate karma. They've made the causes to be whatever it is that they're reflecting as in this lifetime. Okay, so forbearance, let me just read it again then. It also patience or endurance. It's what we do in the Saha world. We put up with the shit until we attain supreme perfect enlightenment. Okay, because that's what precedes supreme perfect enlightenment actually manifesting, is the test, is the validation that you are a bodhisattva of the earth. You're doing all the things that a Buddha does. You are a Buddha. Okay, not theoretically, actually, right? So it says it's one of the 6 paramitas or practices required of bodhisattvas in practicing the paramita of perfection or forbearance. Bodhisattvas are required to bear persecutions and difficulties and remain unperturbed. That's the whole thing. We don't get angry at the teaching for not not making us go through what we just went through, that's making us unhappy or challenged. Okay? We understand it's all part of the deal, and in fact, we asked for that. In fact, we created it, so in essence, we asked for that challenge to be able to validate that we could defeat that challenge and reveal our true identity. That's the whole thing. We're revealing our true identity when we become Buddhas in our present form. All right? The Sutra on the Wise and Foolish tells a story of an ascetic named Forbearance who was Shakyamuni Buddha in a previous incarnation. The ascetic, when engaged in the practice of forbearance, suffered mutilating at the hands of the ruler and remained unperturbed. So this is the whole key. You've got to keep your cool. You can't ever get discouraged. You can't ever blame something outside of yourself for what you experience as a human being. Okay? The land of eternally tranquil light, what is that? Just said it a minute ago. It's a Buddha land. It's actually the true identity of the Saha world. Okay? They're not two different places. That's the point. You're not going to go to heaven and go to the land of eternally tranquil light. You're going to find it in this lifetime, in the existence of being a Buddha in your present form. That's when it goes from Saha to that. Okay, numberless major world system, dust particle kalpas. I'm not going to get into all that yet. But everybody knows what it is, right? It's the time described by Shakyamuni Buddha as being how long it's been since he's actually attained enlightenment. And he describes in chapter 16, in the 16th chapter. Then the emergence of the treasure tower, we've already gone over that. And then Bodhisattvas of the earth, you already all know what that is. And the 52 stages of Bodhisattva practice are could be said to be boiled down into those 6 stages of practice in the latter day of the law, because we have Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to expedite it. It's not a seated meditation process. It's an active contribution to society. And that's about that. I think I'll just go on. All right, and we're going to get into now chapter 21 from page 166. All right, but I'm going to fool you again, as I always do, and go back to the lifespan chapter where we talk about supernatural powers, okay, which is point 2. All right, but rather than going just to point 2, I'm going to go ahead and start on page 123 and reread the first page talking about us, the Bodhisattvas of the earth. All right, because we have already emerged, and that's motivated Shakyamuni to have to explain who we are to everybody else. You with me? On page 123, this is the beginning of the second half of the OTT. Chapter 16, the lifespan of the thus come one. I'm going to skip that whole first part, but I'm going to go here to the second paragraph where it says the record of the orally transmitted teachings, where Nichiren kicks in. The title of this chapter deals with an important matter that concerns Nichiren himself, because he's the original Buddha. All right? This is the transmission described in the supernatural powers, which is what we're going to do here. We're going to read, okay? But so all the way back here in chapter 16, he's talked about us getting to this point up here.
Right.
All right? All right, so the record of the orally transmitted teaching says the title of this chapter deals with an important matter that concerns Nichiren himself. The lifespan of the thus come one is the name of this chapter. This is the transmission described in the supernatural powers chapter from Shakyamuni to Bodhisattva's superior practices. All right? The thus come one is Shakyamuni Buddha, or more generally speaking, all the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 existences, because he just called everybody there, remember?
Right.
All right? Or more specifically, okay, so the thus come one in this book, the Lotus Sutra, is Shakyamuni, all right? But generally speaking, it's all Buddhas, is what he's saying, okay? But then he qualifies it further. He says, or more specifically, which more specifically than either of those 2 clarifications of thus come one, it's to the Buddha of the original state who is eternally endowed with the 3 body. Who's that?
Us.
Us, right? And who is that originally? Bodhisattva superior practices, okay, which is the embodiment of Nichiren as it relates to this Lotus Sutra and the Daishonen's identity that he takes from the standpoint of what he accomplished in his lifetime revealing Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's why he says, I'll take on this moniker of Bodhisattva superior practices because I've done everything that superior practices was supposed to come and do. But that's not a true identity. Do you understand? Okay. Even if Nichikan refers to him as a reincarnation of superior practices, there's no such thing as reincarnation in the way we view things. You understand that, right? We transmigrate, right? So we can have representative identities that qualify past lifetimes and experiences that put us in a position to be in this lifetime with this set of experiences. But those are, again, there's no separation between past, present, and future. Okay, so those identities don't exist anymore. Right? Do you understand? Superior practices is still hanging out somewhere. Do you understand? It's not Nichiren's nickname. Okay? It was to give credibility to what this process of going from the Lotus Sutra to the orally transmitted teachings is all about. We're in the latter day of the law. Everything has changed. Even the Lotus Sutra is now just a provisional teaching. Okay? I'm going to go through here and show you how much of what was said in there is actually brought out by the Daishonin. He's really into his own teaching throughout this whole thing. Okay? So do understand that. He's tying the Lotus Sutra in. Okay? All right, so continuing. It is, okay, so more specifically, it refers to the Buddha of the original state who is eternally endowed with the three bodies, which is all the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo thus come ones. Okay? All the disciples of the original teacher are the Buddhas that are Buddhas of the original state of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's the original state, right? And because of that, we're all always endowed with the three bodies. Why? Because we all manifest from, what is it? From the three bodies. Eternally endowed with the three bodies. You remember what the three bodies are, right? The Dharma body, the reward body, and the manifested body. Okay. So he says, now it is the understanding of Nichiren and his followers that generally speaking, the term thus come one refers to all living beings because it's the latter day of the law. And all living beings have the potential for Buddhahood because Nam-myoho Renge-kyo has been revealed and actual Ichiden Sanzen is attainable, okay, rather than theoretically, okay, which would have happened in the former middle day when the Buddha that was the teacher, the correct teacher, was Shakyamuni. More specifically, it refers to the disciples and lay supporters of Nichiren. So he says, more specifically. So he says, or more specifically, it refers to the original teacher, okay? But now it's the understanding of Nichiren and his followers that, generally speaking, the term thus come one refers to all living beings because we've got all Buddhas are theoretical, right? We're all, you got to get to hearing the name and the words of the truth. More specifically, last sentence of the second paragraph there. More specifically, it refers to the disciples and lay supporters of Nichiren. All right, so that qualifies exactly who the Buddha of the original state is. It's all of us. This being the case, the term eternally endowed with the three bodies refers to the votaries of Lotus Sutra in the latter day of the law. The title of honor for one who is eternally endowed with the three bodies is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This is what the three great concerns of actuality of the lifespan chapter refer to, and that's again the devotion, invocation, and sanctuary that are all represented by the Gohonzon and where we enshrine it. He says, and then it's going to go speaking in name. I'm going to go past that. Okay, they'll go to the last paragraph. Speaking as the chapter of the chapter as a whole. The idea of gradually overcoming illusions is not the ultimate meaning of the lifespan chapter. You should understand that the ultimate meaning of this chapter is that ordinary mortals, just as they are in their original states of being, are Buddhas. And if you ask what is the action and practice carried out by the Buddha eternally endowed with the three bodies, which is what he was just talking about here, it is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which each one of us do, which is why we are Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come ones, and we're equal to the original teacher. Understand? Mm-hmm. We're capable of being teachers ourselves because we never disobey. We have forbearance no matter what goes down. We're never swayed to go Titan. Right. We're some of the few that just don't ever quit. A lot of them get there and they do quit. We've got plenty of personal examples of that, right? So this pertains to us as specifically people that practice forbearance and that are true disciples of the original teacher. Now, this is what I wanted to get into though. Point 2, regarding the words, you must listen carefully and hear of the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. And let's not get caught up in chapter 21 talking about light beams coming out all of his pores and him illuminating, worlds in far off distance outer space, because it's qualified here. What did I just do with my card? Did I drop it? There it is. Okay. Point 2, regarding the words, you must listen carefully and hear of the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says this passage supports the concept of one who is eternally endowed with three bodies. So anybody that's born in the Saha world after in the 5th 500-year period and beyond, right? Since Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is available, right? Various interpretations on these words have been transmitted by different teachers. As for the transcendental powers, the actions that are carried out instant by instant, motion by motion, by us living beings are regarded as transcendental powers. So being alive is the transcendental power in reality. Thus, the voices of the wardens of hell punishing the offenders are all to be termed transcendental powers. The countless things in the 3,000 realms that undergo the process of birth, abiding, age, and extinction, all of them are all in themselves embodiments of transcendental power. So anything that has had life through the process of birth and entered extinction through abiding, change, and extinction are all embodiments of transcendental powers because we come back. But in the view of Nietzsche and his followers, the realization and understanding of the concept of the attainment of Buddhahood in one's present form is what is meant by the 3,000, by the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. What's he referring to there? Actual Ichinen Sanzen. The ability now in the latter day, because of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, to be able to attain actual Ichinen Sanzen, which he's tried to clarify. There's a difference between his teaching of Buddhism of sowing and Buddhism of harvest that had preceded it by Shakyamuni. But in the view of Nietzsche and his followers, the realization and understanding of the concept of attainment in Buddhahood in one's present form is what is meant by the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. Pardon me. For outside the attainment of Buddhahood, there is no secret and no transcendental powers. The eternally endowed three bodies mentioned here are gained through a single word, and that single word is faith, or to believe. Therefore, the sutra says we will believe and accept the Buddha's words. You should stop and consider the meaning of these two words, believe and accept. And ultimately, it's that they culminate in forbearance. And the forbearance culminates in Buddhahood in your present form. You with me? Yeah. Okay, so now let's go to the 21st chapter, the supernatural powers chapter, and read what he says there. On page, pardon me, page 166. Man.
It's something.
Okay. Chapter 21, Supernatural Powers of the Thus Come One. 8 important points. Point 1. Concerning the supernatural powers, Jinriki of the Thus Come One, Myoho Renge-kyo. Words and Phrases, Volume 10 says, the Thus Come One has already been explained. The word Jin, or supernatural, means that which is unfathomable. And the word Riki or powers refers to the vital or essential activity. That which is unfathomable is the profoundness of the eternal or inherent entity, while vital activity is the magnitude of the power that causes the changes in the phenomenal world. In this chapter, because the profound doctrines of the Buddha are entrusted to others, he displays his 10 types of great powers beforehand. That's why they're written that way. That's why the chapter is written that way. That is why the chapter is entitled Supernatural Powers. Now, the Daishonin says, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says, this Myoho Rengekyo, and this is what I was saying, my friend Vanessa left a comment from the last chapter that we discussed, saying, oh, you really clarified the difference between majorless dust particle, major world system dust particle kalpas and kuan. And that's why this is so important. I said, well, it's the difference between Buddhism of harvest and Buddhism of sowing, because it's the basis of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. All right. So that's when I said that the reason that was so important is so you see a differentiation between the advent of the Daishonin and the advent of Shakyamuni. Okay, and the reality that it was theoretical until true 3,000 realms in a single moment of life became available through Nichiren's teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So he says right here, Nichiren is saying on page 166 at the bottom, the record of the orally transmitted teaching says this Myoho Renge-kyo is not the wonderful law of Shakyamuni Buddha. Because when the action of this chapter takes place, the essence of the sutra has already been transmitted or entrusted to the Bodhisattva superior practices. Generally speaking, regarding this entrustment of Myoho Renge-kyo to the Bodhisattva, the ceremony for entrustment begins in the treasure tower chapter. The entity it begins with the ceremony in the air. The entity to be entrusted becomes apparent in the lifespan chapter. It's all living beings of the Saha world and the 5th 500-year period and beyond. All right? And the ceremony comes to an end in the supernatural powers and entrustment chapters, because he's 3 pats on the head to the people that are the bodhisattvas of the earth and to the other people that are a part of the assembly that will be appearing in the former and the middle day of the law. The thus come one is the thus come one of the lifespan chapter, and the supernatural powers are the 10 supernatural powers possessed by a Buddha. Essentially, the 5 characters that make up Myoho Renge-kyo are the supernatural gene entity that is unfathomable, and the powers, Riki, that cause the changes. Okay, so it's everything that he talked about in the Lotus Sutra is all contained in Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. These supernatural powers are the same as those referred to in the passage in the lifespan chapter that speaks of the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers, which I just read to you. They are the daimoku, plain and simple. It's the latter day of the law. It's not light beams shooting out of pores or long, broad tongues extending up to the heaven. These supernatural powers are the same as those referred to in the passage in the lifespan chapter that speaks of the thus come one's secret and his transcendental powers. They are the daimoku, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, that Nichiren and his followers are now chanting. These 10 supernatural powers, which are also Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in the latter day of the law, both apply to the time when the Buddha is in the world and after his extinction. But in a deeper sense, you should understand that all 10 powers are in fact limited to the time after his extinction, because they only really become available with Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in the 5th 500-year period Nichiren. All right? So that's why he's saying, but in a deeper sense, You should understand that all 10 powers are in fact limited to the time after his extinction, not during the time when the Lotus Sutra was being preached and practiced, okay, by even Tentai, okay? So up until the fifth 500-year period, this is all still theoretical. Again, we may say that this chapter deals with the powers Riki of the Thus Come One Myoho Rengekyo and the deities Jin. The Thus Come One refers to all living beings, as has already been explained in the section on the lifespan chapter. Hence, Tentai in his commentary says that he has already explained the meaning of the term Thus Come One. The deities are the 7 shrines of the Mountain King of Mount Hei. You should reflect carefully on what this means. And since he says reflect on it carefully, I've gone out of my way to look up the Mountain King, the 7 shrines of the Mountain King of Mount Hei. And the deal is this: that's actually what was the name of Dengyo's place up on Mount Hei? That's what they're talking about. That's where the seven shrines are. They're on Mount Hei. That's Dengyo's place, right? Okay, that's where this comes from. But don't forget that they got invaded by subsequent high priests after Dengyo died, and it became a true word as well as Tendai. Simple. Okay, that's when Onoji and I can't think of Onoji was the true word, and I can't think of Dengyo's. In Rakuji, Dengyo's place. Okay, so they were at war, and then they kind of got included, and at that point in time, then they tore up all of these deities, these statues, so that's why they're not there. That's why there's no reference that I could find to clarify what the Daishonin is saying by discussing. But he's just saying the deities, we already know what the deities are, right? They're influences in the environment that reflect our faith and our ability to call them forth, okay? Which we have, but we have to be doing the right things so that we have that manifested power. All right, you should reflect carefully on what this means. All right, so point 2 on the bottom of page 167. Concerning the long, broad tongue of the Buddha, in the passage he extended his long, broad tongue upward till it reached the Brahma heaven. That's what it was, Brahma heaven. Top of page 168. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the word broad refers to the theoretical teaching, and the word long refers to the essential teaching. The word tongue refers to the middle way or the Dharma nature. Because the wonderful law brings enduring benefits to all living beings of the 10 worlds, it is characterized as spatially broad and temporally long. Did you understand what that meant? Spatially, in terms of space, and then time is temporarily. Okay, spatially is distance, and temporarily is time. Again, broad may be taken to refer to the wonderful law as it existed since major world system dust particle kalpas ago, while long may be taken to refer to the wonderful law as it has existed since numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago. So he's referring to, again, in the Lotus Sutra, Sanzen Jintingo and Goyaku Jintingo. Goyaku Jintingo is what's described in chapter 16. And major world system dust particle kalpas is, I think, is from the Phantom, something is like chapter 5. All these ways of looking at the matter refer alike to the Buddha's long, broad tongue. So you don't have to make a distinction of the reference in the Lotus Sutra versus the latter day of the law. They're the same thing. It's temporally incalculable, and it's spatially incalculable. It's infinite. It's infinite in time. It's infinite in space. Okay, in dimension. All right. Point 3 on page 168 in the middle. Regarding the passage, and from all his pores emitted immeasurable countless beams of light that illuminated all the worlds in the 10 directions. The other Buddhas seated on lion seats beneath the numerous jeweled trees did likewise. So the other Buddhas that were emanations of Shakyamuni started doing showing their supernatural powers at the same time and illuminated all this for everybody to see, right? So again, it's a metaphor.
Right.
Okay, so the record of the orally transmitted teaching says the words 10 directions, as it always does, he says, refer to the 10 worlds. Okay, so it's not about a bunch of places in outer space. It's about understanding the code here. The passage makes clear that plants and trees too are able to attain Buddhahood. All right. Now, Dengyo's already qualified this. All right, as part of the teaching of the Tendai school. The word shishi, this is a very famous quote that's been said by President Ikeda on many occasions. The word shishi or lion is made up of 2 elements. The first shi, which can be taken to mean a teacher, and the second shi, which can be taken to mean a disciple. These lion seats that these emanation Buddhas were sitting in represent the land of the eternally tranquil light, which is what? The Saha world as it's experienced by a true Buddha. All right? That is the lands of the 10 worlds, which are all predicated on what world we're in, right? Okay? That is the lands of the 10 worlds, and their original states are none other than lands of eternally tranquil light. So whether it's hell, hunger, whatever, it all possesses the potentiality to become a Buddha land. That's the point. There's no land that's disqualified because it's not already pure. Okay, because there's no such thing as already pure. There is no such thing as pure. Don't forget, purity includes all things that are impure. It includes, because if it's pure, it's everything. So it includes even the teachings of the, of the former middle day. Pardon me. All in their original states are none other than lands of eternally tranquil light. Point 4, the bottom of page 168. On the words, when Shakyamuni Buddha and the other Buddhas beneath the jeweled trees thus displayed their supernatural powers, they did so for fully 100,000 years. So it's spatially long. Okay. So the record of the orally transmitted teaching says the word fully or to fill refers to the Dharma realm. 100 means the 100 worlds, and 1,000 means the 1,000 factors, all right, which is all part of what? The 100 words and the 1,000, the 100 worlds and the 1,000 factors are all included in what? That we utilize for the attainment, that represents our attainment of Buddhahood in our present form. When do we attain Buddhahood in our present form? At what point in time do we attain Buddhahood in our present form in a given existence?
When you are awakened to the truth.
When we are awakened to the truth that we're already the Buddha exactly as we are. We've already gone through the 5 stages subsequent to that, going from being in theory to hearing the name and the words of the truth, whatever, right? Okay, so so he says here, the word fully or to fill refers to the Dharma realm, which is everything. 100 means 300 means the 100 worlds, and 1,000 means the 1,000 factors. The passage is stating that fully 100,000 years means the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Okay, which is Ichinen Sanzen, right? Okay, and we're in the latter day, and we're disciple of the original teacher, so it means Buddhahood. 1 instant, 1 moment of life, 2 lasts for fully 100,000 years. And in this way, the 10 types of supernatural powers become manifest. The 10 types of supernatural powers are the supernatural powers of the 10 worlds. All 10 worlds possess Buddhahood, even hell. All right? So you can really go a long way in a 1 moment, single moment, go from hell to Buddhahood. It's possible. It's there for you to do. Right? The supernatural powers of each one of the 10 worlds originate from the single law, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. All right? All right. So everybody's with me on that, right? All right. Point 5, middle of page 169, regarding the passage that describes how the earth in all these worlds quaked and trembled in 6 different ways, and the living beings in their midst all saw in this Saha world the innumerable Buddhas who were seated on lion seats under the numerous jeweled trees. Let me read that again, because he's quoting from the Lotus Sutra as it was described in the Synopsis. All right? All the Buddhas are shooting out all their... Okay, first of all, what is the key when the worlds quake and trembled in 6 different ways? What has that already been qualified to mean by Manjushri? Way back when? At the end of introduction. It's whenever the truth is about to be spoken. All right? Or revealed. Okay? When he was started to do the Lotus Sutra, he came out of his samadhi that he was in when he was in the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra. Okay, too many things to think about at one time today. I'm so sorry. Okay, so where am I?
Point 5.
Yeah.
Point 5. Okay, pardon me. Regarding the passage that describes how the earth in all these worlds. Now, are you understanding what that's saying, though? Okay, so he's illuminated the ability of the assembly to see all these other worlds, right? All right. The earth in all these worlds, in other words, the ground. Okay, not the earth like the Saha world earth that he's preaching from. Okay, okay. In all these worlds, quaked and trembled in 6 different ways, which is what happens whenever a Buddha is qualifying the truth. And the living beings in their midst saw in this Saha world the innumerable Buddhas who were seated on lion seats under the numerous jeweled trees. The word earth, the record of the only transmitted teaching says the word earth represents the realm of the environment. That's what I was trying to qualify. Earth is not just the name of a planet. It's also a world where living beings reside. Okay? The living beings there represent the realm of living beings. And the numerous jeweled trees that the Buddhas are seated under represent the realm of the 5 components. The passage illustrates the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Okay? So the realm of the 5 components is what? The state of non-substantiality, right? Isn't that when they all come apart, right? We're temporary gatherings of those 5 components to appear as,
Whoever you are.
yeah, form, nature, and entity, right? So this passage illustrates the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. We're all included in everything. Everything's equal. All right? Even if you're in a different place than this earth. This Saha world is not the only Saha world. Okay? All of these places that are earth, that it says the earth in all these worlds are Saha worlds. Okay? In terms of their true identity. All right? So the passage illustrates the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life again, as it relates to the environment. Point 6, regarding the passage, beyond these immeasurable, boundless hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, millions of asamyak worlds, there is a land named Saha, and in it Buddha named Shakyamuni. He's talking about now this planet Earth. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the bodhisattvas of the essential teaching, employing the power of great forbearance to proclaim and propagate Myoho Rengekyo, is known as Saha. So what did they just talk about? Which bodhisattvas of the essential teaching is he referring to? Us. Us, the bodhisattvas, the Nam Myoho Rengekyo, thus come ones. Okay, the bodhisattvas of the original teacher, the bodhisattvas of the latter day of the law. The bodhisattvas of the essential teaching, employing the power of great forbearance, propagating this Buddhism forward and never letting it die. Okay? Employing the great power of forbearance to proclaim and propagate Myoho Rengekyo is known as endurance, is known as Saha. What we do every day, every moment of every day is forbearance in light of the truth of what it is that we're doing in a single moment of life. We're being the Buddha exactly as we exist. Okay? Okay, forbearance is the land of eternally tranquil light. So if we've achieved enlightenment, then there's nothing better that we are already in the land of eternally tranquil light. And that's why you look at things the way you do all the time. Okay? Because that is the right way, the correct way to perceive them if you're in the life condition that you're qualifying that you've achieved. Do you understand?
Yes.
So forbearance is a matter of fact once you've attained Buddhahood in your present form. Because you never quit regardless. Because we never disobey. We're qualified to teach. Okay? So, forbearance is the land of eternally tranquil light. So if we're waiting for some time, this place is going to transform and there's going to be twinkly lights in all the trees and,
Rainbows.
Rainbows everywhere and no more storm or lightning, scaring the... No. The mind of forbearance is called Shakyamuni Buddha, who revealed this in the Lotus Sutra. Saha means a world in which one must exercise forbearance and learn to endure, or you'll never be able to reveal your Buddhahood that already exists and always has, because you're eternally endowed with the three bodies. There's never been a time when you didn't have this ability to manifest your innate Buddha nature. But you had to go through some stuff to get to the point of realizing that, right?
Right.
And realizing it isn't the end of it, right? You've got to propagate it. You cannot let it die. You cannot be satisfied with your own state of life.
Right.
And, I found the land of eternally tranquil light. You can too. Good luck. No, it's not that. You've got to teach,
Yes.
right? Okay, so then point 7, you could read this before you attain Buddhahood, you would read this, I would read this as talking about the Daishonin. Okay? At this point in time in my life, I see it as myself. I see it as all living beings that have attained Buddhahood. This is Buddhahood that he's talking about here. Okay. Point 7 at page 170. Regarding the passage, as the light of the sun and moon can banish all obscurity and gloom, so this person, used to think about it as this person outside of myself, not my identity. This person, as he passes through the world, which is what I'm doing moment by moment,
Yes.
can wipe out the darkness of living beings because I can propagate the true teaching that allows him to become equal to myself as a Buddha. All right? And that's my only gig. That's all I care about. because I'm already living in the land of eternally tranquil light. I'm not pursuing a Buddha land anymore. I understand I'm already there. All right? So the record of the orally transmitted teaching says this person refers to Bodhisattva superior practices. The world refers to the great country of Japan. The darkness of living beings refers to the grave malady of slandering the law. Now, I could have seen Bodhisattva superior practices and gone, oh, Nichiren, okay? But in chapter 15, he already qualified what the four great bodhisattvas, they're all characteristics of the total, of the purity of Buddhahood, all right? So now I see this Bodhisattva superior practice references not as a qualification of the Daishonin, but as the qualification of a true Buddha. A true Buddha chants Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. A true Buddha attains Buddhahood through Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and propagates the true teaching of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo in the Saha world to achieve Kosen Rufu or widespread propagation. Right? All right. That's when that's when maybe we see some twinkling lights. The world refers to the great country of Japan. The darkness of living beings refers to the grave malady of slandering the law. That which can wipe out this malady is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, okay, as any true Buddha would be utilizing as the basis of everything. Now, Nichiren and his followers are the ones referred to here. Okay, so this is all of us, not just him. All right? Now, point 8, regarding the passage, so this person, as he passes through the world, middle of page 170, can wipe out the darkness of living beings, causing immeasurable numbers of bodhisattvas in the end to dwell in the single vehicle. Therefore, a person of wisdom, hearing how keen are the benefits to be gained after I have passed into extinction, should accept and uphold the sutra. Such a person assuredly and without doubt will attain the Buddha way. You all understood exactly what that's saying, right? Okay, so the record of the orally transmitted teaching says the expression in the end or ultimately refers to widely declaring and propagating the teaching. So what is that referring to? Once again, Kosen Rufu. Kosen Rufu, okay? To dwell in the single vehicle means that one should dwell in the single law of Myoho Renge Kyo, which is what we do in this process of widely declaring and propagating Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, right? Such a person refers to an ordinary mortal who has reached the stage of hearing the name and the words of the truth, the second of the 6 stages of practice. So what did he just qualify there? Once you're on the path to attain Buddhahood in your present form, there's no separation between stage 2 and stage 6. Those are all just a matter of a single moment of life. Once you hear the name and the words of the truth, you can go straight to stage 6. You don't have to go through stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, and then go through stage 6. Generally speaking, you will, but it's not separated by time. Okay? It's separated by clarity of understanding. Okay? How long it takes one entity to reveal their original identity will vary based on who they are and what they're here to do. They've created that cause. That wasn't given to them. That wasn't awarded to them. They didn't acquire it. They've made it that way. Okay? So, such a person refers to an ordinary mortal who has reached the name of the stage of hearing the name and the words of the truth. So, if you can only be in stage 2, yet all of this kind of stuff, we wipe out the darkness, you must be already functioning as a true Buddha, right? Which is what you're already doing before you come to that realization. Right? We learned Gongyo. We start to learn the teaching. We start to reveal bit by bit who we really are until we finally convince ourselves of who we are. All right? So, the Buddha way refers to the stage of ultimate enlightenment, the 6th and highest stage of practice, which occurs in a single moment of life. The word doubt here indicates darkness or ignorance as fundamental doubt and perplexity. That's what holds you back from the second stage to the sixth stage. It's that fundamental doubt or perplexity. You know that the teaching says you're already a Buddha exactly as you are, but then how could that be? Okay? So, the word doubt here indicates darkness or ignorance as fundamental doubt and perplexity. The passage makes clear that now in the latter day of the law, one should carry out only this single practice, that of accepting and upholding this sutra in order to attain Buddhahood. Now, when he says, what is he qualified over and over again so far? When we see this sutra, we're now in the latter day. He's quoting the Lotus Sutra, okay? And uphold this sutra. That's from the Lotus Sutra. But he's saying now, uphold this sutra in quotation marks. What does that really mean? Nam-myoho Renge Kyo is this sutra, is the sutra that he's referring to, not the Lotus Sutra's 28 chapters. All right? Okay, so that was the end of chapter 21. God, I'm nailing it. Chapter 22, Entrustment, 3 important points. I might even be done a little early. I'm going to have some water. Have I confused you at all?
No.
Everybody's with me?
Yeah.
All right. Chapter 22, Entrustment, 3 important points on 171 of the OTT. All right, point 1, regarding the passage, at that time Shakyamuni Buddha arose, he rose from his Dharma seat in the treasure tower sitting next to many treasures. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the word rose indicates that the Buddha has risen from his seat within the treasure tower, and that the ceremony held outside the tower will now begin. This ceremony is the entrustment of the teachings as indicated in the 3 paths the Buddha gives to the heads of the bodhisattvas. And if you read these 2 chapters, you would see that he's patted the bodhisattvas of the earth, and he's also given pats to the other bodhisattvas. Each one of them is basically saying, you got to go do what I've just done. All right? The entrustment accompanied by the 3 pats symbolizes that the Buddha is entrusting to them the 3 categories of action, namely actions of the body, mouth, and mind, the 3 truths, the threefold contemplation in a single mind, or realizing that the three truths are in one's mind. Okay, so let's go back and see what that said again. The entrustment accompanied by the 3 paths symbolizes that the Buddha is entrusting them with the 3 categories of action, namely actions of the body, mouth, and mind, all right, which is what allows us to propagate the law, okay? The 3 truths, which are come on, guys, 3 truths. Doesn't it kill you when you can't think of what you already know? The 3 truths are non-substantiality, temporary existence, and the truth of the middle way. That it's neither one of those 2 extremes. Okay? Those are the 3 truths. Okay? Now, so, and then the realization that we get from chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo is that the threefold contemplation in a single mind, or realizing that 3 truths are one in mind. Do you understand? Because when we say non-substantiality, temporary existence, or the truth of the middle way, we're qualifying that we're accepting the teaching that the truth is that it's neither one of those 2 extremes. It's in the middle. Okay? That used to only be able to be accomplished through seated meditation in the Makashikan, and that's what threefold contemplation in a single mind was. You were trying to come to the point where you understood that temporary existence and non-substantiality are just aspects of the true identity that you're revealing in this moment because you're alive. Okay? Everybody's with me? All right, so I'll say the entrustment accompanied by the three paths symbolizes that the Buddha is entrusting to them the three categories of action. In other words, go propagate the law. You've got everything you need to do it. The three truths, the reality that there is no limitation between this moment, the past, or the future, okay? And that they're all actually one and the same. The point 2, regarding the passage, the thus come one has great pity and compassion. He is in no way stingy or begrudging, nor has he any fear. He is able to bestow on living beings the wisdom of the Buddha, the wisdom of the thus come one, the wisdom that comes of itself. The thus come one is a great giver of gifts to all living beings. The wisdom that comes of itself. So what wisdom is he referring to? He is able to bestow on living beings the wisdom of the Buddha, the wisdom of the thus come one, the wisdom that comes of itself. What is the wisdom that comes of itself? Yes and no. Okay, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is the basis of it, but what is that wisdom? You can't come to this wisdom without Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, but Nam Myoho Renge Kyo reveals that wisdom to you over the 6 stages, over the last 5 stages, right? So what is the wisdom that he's referring to that comes of itself?
So faith.
In what? The teaching. In other words, again, what's the difference between the 5th stage and the 6th stage? And the 6th stage is referred to as the stage of ultimate enlightenment. Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. It's your reward body perceiving your Dharma body. You are the one that takes yourself from stage 5 to stage 6. And what is the thing that you do? You accept and believe and understand. That's the reason you can finally believe. You finally understand the true teaching that you've always been a Buddha. Okay? That there is no, it's not a separate thing. It's always, the 10th world has always been there, regardless of whether you were in hell or you were in hunger or you were in heavenly beings or whatever stage you might have been, wherever you were doing, whatever you were doing, you were still always the Buddha. That wisdom does come of itself. It's not, it's already in the teaching, but you grasping it and utilizing it for the sake of perceiving yourself, not theoretically, but truly. As the teaching says, you truly are. Okay? That's the wisdom that comes of itself. And that does come from faith.
Faith. Yes.
Okay? That's the only place it can come from. That's why faith is the basis of all things. That's where all wisdom comes from, in reality. All right, so the thus come one is a great giver of gifts to all living beings. Because the thus come one, anyone that's attained enlightenment in their present form can provide this means to achieve it to other people. Because we've got the gifts of the mouth and the mouth, the mind, and the body, right? Okay, so it says, okay, the record of the orally transmitted, since the thus come one, okay, here we go. Point 2. I'll read it all the way through. From point 2, regarding the passage, thus come one has great pity and compassion. He is in no way stingy or begrudging, nor is he any fear. He is able to bestow on living beings the wisdom of the Buddha, the wisdom of the thus come one, the wisdom that comes of itself. The thus come one is a great giver of gifts to all living beings. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, since the thus come one is the thus come one of the wonders of the original law, okay, which means what? The thus come, okay, since the thus come one is the thus come one of the wonders of the original law. What's the original law? Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Since the thus come one is the thus come one of the wonders of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the term thus come one here refers to this votary of the Lotus Sutra, this votary of the true teaching of the Lotus Sutra, which is for the fifth 500-year period. It's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, right? Okay. So, in the phrase giver, great giver of gifts, the word gifts refers to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's the gift that we give. We take them from being a Buddha in theory to hearing the name and the words of the truth. That's what makes us great giver of gifts. All right? Which will spread in the present age the latter day of the law. It can only spread in the latter day of the law because it's not revealed until the latter day of the law. And the latter day of the law lasts forever. Okay, so there's no end time for this law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The word giver, you should understand, refers to the Bodhisattva superior practices, which we all have that aspect when we're doing Shakabuku as mentors to people coming along through the stages to try and get to the sixth stage. Okay, regardless of whether we're in the sixth stage or not. Somebody that's heard the name and the words of the truth does Shakabuku too, gets the same benefit. They're only in stage 2, but they're the giver of great gifts. They're the thus come one. You get it? Even though they don't refer to themselves or realize that they're the thus come one. They're still giving Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. They're giving what the thus come one gives. You with me? All right. So they are then superior practices. We all are. That's why the Daishonin says, superior practice isn't a single identity. In chapter 15, he qualifies that. Okay? All right. So in the phrase great giver of gifts, the word gifts refers to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which will spread in the present age, the latter day of the law. The word giver, you should understand, refers to the Bodhisattva superior practices. To be sure, this chapter is the one in which the theoretical teaching is entrusted to the bodhisattvas in general. However, since the entrustment is made to the bodhisattvas who have superior practices as their leaders, it is clear that the true meaning is that the entrustment is made to superior practices, to the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come ones. Because all followers of superior practices are Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come ones. Right? Okay. Entrustment is not, it's got an asterisk here. This entrustment is not the theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra, but that is that of the essence of the sutra as indicated in the supernatural powers chapter, okay, which is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. He just qualified that there. All right. Point 3, regarding the passage, we will respectfully carry out these things just as the world-honored one is commanded. We beg the world-honored one to have no concern on this account. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says this passage constitutes the vow made by the various bodhisattvas, and the others. It is on the basis of this passage that Nichiren and his followers venture to reprimand the heavenly gods and benevolent deities and the bodhisattvas for failing to fulfill their vow. Okay, and what is he referring to there? This passage constitutes the vow made by the various bodhisattvas and the others. We would be included in that, right?
Yeah.
Okay? It is on this basis, it is on the basis of this passage, we will respectfully carry out all these things. So everybody is saying that they're going to respectfully carry out all this stuff. Everybody in the assembly, whether they were bodhisattvas of the earth or not, right? Okay, so the deities are included in that then, right? Okay, so what he's saying here, this passage constitutes the vow made by the various bodhisattvas and the others. It's on the basis of this passage that Nichiren and his followers venture to reprimand the heavenly gods and benevolent deities and bodhisattvas for failing to fulfill their vow. And you can go like, what's he talking about? What did he do on his way to Tatsunokuchi? Do you think you can't do the same thing? I do it all the time. I start to give those deities that are represented in certain characters a little bit of, what the hell?
Yeah.
What the hell? Do your job. Okay, that's exactly what he was basically saying to Hachiman.
Reprimand.
Yes, reprimand. Don't forget what you promised to do. You've been promised you're going to protect me.
Yeah.
I am a votary of the Lotus Sutra. I am a thus come one of original enlightenment.
That's it. Today's encouragement. Everything hinges on strong faith. Those whose faith is strong will be kept safe from harm by the protective forces of the universe. Strong faith means to possess unbeatable resolve, compassion, prudence, courage, wisdom, and good fortune.
Thank you, dear.
It was
Thank you. Well done. And with that, we're finished. Thank you very much.
Thank